Hello and welcome to Cricket and Wrestling for Us. And today I've got a very special guest, one who knows a lot more than I do about wrestling, pro wrestling, sports entertainment, whatever you want to call it. We've got Amaan. I've known this guy for over 20 years, unfortunately. And the one common thing we share, barring, comic books and stuff, is our fandom of wrestling. First of all, Amaan, how you doing, man?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
And we're going to talk all things wrestling. What happened this week? Let's start from the top. Let's start from a Monday. And, Mondays aren't the best days, especially because Raw's on. But there was something really good that happened.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the cash-in by Big E against Bobby Lashley?
I was very surprised. And I don't know if this is a controversial comment, but I'm not the biggest Big E fan in the world. Right. I like him, but I'm not somebody that's like completely invested in him. But yeah, it was very surprising to see that he cashed it in and he actually won the championship from Bobby Lashley. But it was very surprising, very good though. It was about time that they started investing and pushing in talent they already have. The amount of times I've seen them just, Brock Lesnar is coming back. Oh, Goldberg is coming back. I know he's your favorite, but I think it's time. The Goldberg ship has sailed. He's in the Hall of Fame, I think. That's it now. But yes, very happy that they have invested in and finally put the rocket on his back, as they say, and now he's the champion. So let's see how it goes moving forward. Hopefully, he gets a long stint.
Yeah, if it's anything like Kofi Kingston's early few months, then that's great. But let's hope something like the Lesnar Kofi kind of thing doesn't happen.
Yeah, let's hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I have a question for you with regards to as you said, Oldberg, as a lot of my viewers have called Goldberg, and I keep telling them, no, he's still gold, but nope, he's just old. My question to you is, there was supposed to be Goldberg, Bobby Lashley, because he got injured, the match called off, all that stuff. That was going to happen again, wasn't it? Like there was talks about Lashley and Goldberg once again. Does this mean that's on a break now, or do you think that will still happen at Crown Jewel or something like that, and Big E will defend against someone who should be defended against rather than the same old repeated talent?
I am not 100% sure. I wouldn't be surprised. Actually, I'd be quite surprised if he didn't show up on the Crown Jewel card, because I know they typically like to stock that card up big. I think they've just announced Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns for that show, which typically I would have thought you would have held off until like a WrestleMania or something. But yeah, they do like to stock the Saudi shows with so much talent. I mean, a few years ago, I can't remember specifically, they brought Shawn Michaels out of retirement for that show. Whether that was a good decision or not, I don't know.
It wasn't.
That's debatable. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did that on that show and they carried it on into future programs and future storylines. Am I excited about seeing a Lashley Goldberg match? No. I will be very frank and honest. No.
Wow. I was very excited. I wanted spear versus spear, jackhammer versus jackhammer, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be a big deal for the big fans of the specific sports entertainment brand. But there are a lot of casual fans who love seeing Goldberg back, Lesnar back, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels and stuff. But yeah, definitely, I think taking the championship off Bobby Lashley, even though he might just be the next person that Big E faces, knowing WWE, and knowing WWE, Big E might just lose because they just wanted a surprise rating.
A surprise rating. I mean, they've not been doing amazing in the ratings recently. Raw has been getting a lot of flack and a lot of criticism. So maybe they just needed this as a shot in the arm.
Yeah.
But my concern would be, okay, you've got this shot in the arm, but you need to continue it. How do you continue that momentum? And if you just think, oh well, we've got the fans, they'll tune in on Monday to see what Big E does next, and if he drops the title, then they'll just not watch the following week, and then you're back in the same position.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. They've got the draft coming up as well in a couple of weeks, which we will talk about. Don't worry, everyone, we will talk about, but in a couple of weeks' time for sure. But right now, I think the Big E surprise showed up on Raw. Personally, I didn't think he was even going to show up, but you know, he tweeted. Yeah. I thought it was more of like a make people watch the show rather than him actually cashing in and winning. You know? I have one more question about Raw, right? Okay. There's Charlotte Flair is the Raw Women's Champion. Now the question is that the right call? Should she still remain Raw Women's Champion, or should they have scrapped the entire case of Charlotte Flair? What is it, like 11 times champion now in WWE, which is very close to what her dad has. And yes, we'll talk about Ric Flair eventually based on what's happened this week. But yeah, what do you think? Do you think she's the right person, or do you think someone else will take the reins off her anytime soon, or they're just planning on, Survivor Series, Becky versus Charlotte?
I think for the time being, Charlotte is the right person to have that championship, because I think you need to build people. So when eventually Charlotte does lose that championship, it's a big deal. Like they've done with Big E here. They've built him up. He had this great run on SmackDown. He was Intercontinental Champion. He was hovering around the main event picture. So you need to invest in those characters, and then the payoff is even bigger when they win the championship. What they have done with Rhea Ripley on Raw, I don't know. So I think she was a ready-made star. The amount of time and investment they put into her on NXT, and they brought her up, and then they made her win the championship at WrestleMania. She beat Asuka. But then she was flipping and flopping. They weren't sure whether she was a babyface, whether she was a heel, what she was doing. And then they had this Nikki Ash character, which I thought that they were going to run with because it was a very child-friendly character. They could market a lot of toys and merchandise and everything towards her. But then that kind of just fell by the wayside when they made her lose the title to Charlotte Flair. And now they've got Alexa Bliss, who is like some sort of continuation, the Fiend character, even though they've fired him. I don't know, but I do think that women's division needs some boost in the arm, like we've said. They need to build somebody, so they've got somebody to match up to Charlotte Flair, because she's just going to get stale. And if you've got nobody to work with and nobody to have exciting programs with, then you're just going to get stale and people will lose interest in you.
Yeah, I think that's something I'm very worried about. You mentioned something about, Rhea Ripley. She was a ready-made star. Shayna Baszler, she was a ready-made star. Let's not even get, I know this is a conversation
we do not have that long.
But definitely some really bad calls on Raw. And it's not surprising that they've lost that, what is it, the 18 to 49 demographic twice in a row in 2 weeks. So we'll have to see how Raw kind of comes back, or how they sustain that growth as they've.
There's just so many. Sorry for cutting you off there, but there's so many examples. Like, what have they done with Keith Lee? They bought Karrion Kross, who lost one match on NXT, and didn't give him that full entrance. Didn't make him a big deal. Didn't have Scarlett there, and he lost to Jeff Hardy. Not any disrespect to Jeff Hardy or anything, but the guy was an unstoppable monster on NXT, and within seconds, all that momentum, all that credibility, all that hype gone. And sure, they're trying to build him up now, but what is this ridiculous mask he keeps wearing and coming out in?
I have no idea. I don't even get it. It's like the worst mask that you could have given him. Plus,
Yeah,
with what do you call it, the crossband kind of gear.
that.
But yeah, definitely a huge disappointment. And you know, as your friend, I know you really like the dynamic of Scarlett and Carrion
Yeah,
together,
yeah,
and their entrance, that first entrance
yeah,
at NXT was mind blowing, definitely.
yeah,
And I'm not even a
yeah,
big
yeah,
fan of Carrion Cross. Now, just on that segue, I want to talk about
yeah.
NXT 2.0, right? So, how did you think? What did you think about the flashes and all the Braun Breaker or Rick Steiner as
Yeah, yeah.
what
I
did
mean,
you think of
you
the?
can tell already that there is Vince McMahon's touches on that show already because of all the big guys that have debuted. Um, I'm still holding out on it. I'm going to reserve my full judgment for a couple more weeks. I wasn't a fan of the stage that they put. I don't. Is that have they moved back into the performance center, or is that? Or they were already at the performance center before, weren't they?
Yeah,
Um, yeah, the whole layout just seems a lot different. I quite liked the black and gold
yeah.
feel to it because it gave a different vibe from Raw and SmackDown, which is all bright lights and cameras and all sorts of stuff like that. I've enjoyed the index stuff. I thought that was really, really well done.
Wow, you're one of the few people I found who liked it. I personally thought I understand where they come from because yes, it pops. A wedding
Mhm,
pops.
mhm,
Relationships in
mhm.
sports entertainment definitely pop. So I understand where it came from. Plus, the wedding happened without major
Yeah,
shenanigans,
yeah, yeah.
which is something you don't see very often.
No, no. But I've enjoyed that whole way faction. I think the way that they've presented them as like a goofy, crazy TV sitcom type family, I've really, really enjoyed it. I think everybody's played their parts brilliantly. Johnny Gargano and Candice, Indy and Austin, I thought they've all done really, really well. So I've really, really enjoyed that whole segment. I don't know what they're going to do with it now, whether they continue with it, whether they disband it. I know that Austin Theory has been doing a lot of dark matches on SmackDown, so they might call him up. Um, what they do with Johnny and Candice, I know there's a lot of speculation that his contract is expiring soon, and whether he would leave NXT or go to AEW or go to another wrestling promotion. I don't know, but I have reservations of whether he or people like him, Pete Dunne, Champa, maybe not so Champa now he's the champion, but whether those people who were getting the big pushes when Triple H and Shawn Michaels were in charge will get the same treatment. God knows. And then just on that, I am so happy that Adam Cole left WWE and went to AEW because I had serious, serious reservations. And you know more than anybody how big of a fan I am of his. So it gives me chills to think what they would have done with him on Raw or SmackDown.
Yeah, I've heard many conflicting. Like you've heard the manager story, you've heard all
Oh
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but it's good. At least we don't even have to think about it because he's gone to AEW and he had his first match, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes. But I just want to talk about, Tommaso Ciampa
Hmm.
getting the NXT championship. Do you think number one is the right call, and number two, do you think what they're doing with bringing in all these big guys? Yes, you can see Vince's input, but all of them, apart from the guy, what is it, Vaughn something, the guy who was in the main
Yeah,
event,
yeah.
apart from him, everyone else looked amazing. Like it was a great show for them, the way they kind of absolutely battered the opposition. So,
Hmm.
do you consider this not being a bad step for NXT? Because a lot of people were looking at NXT as, a competition for AEW. But the thing is, because they were always competing, they couldn't develop their brand as much since they started going live. And now they finally got a slight niche. Yes, it's now more developmental than it was a few months ago. But they've got a few new faces. They've got bigger guys who, again, can potentially be pushed on the main roster as well. So do you see this as a potential positive step? Not for people who are already there, as you said. Johnny Gargano might actually leave. Pete Dunne might actually leave. Ciampa, he's champion, but knowing him, he might, I don't care anymore, I'm going to leave. Right? So do you see this as a positive step in the right direction from an NXT perspective?
Like I said, I'm going to hold out my judgment for a few more weeks just to see what they do.
Yeah.
It was a very difficult position to be in, considering Samoa Joe had to vacate the championship he just won back. And who do you strap now? I think there could have been an argument made for strapping Kyle O'Reilly or Pete Dunne. They have been there for a while. Pete Dunne was one of the longest reigning NXT UK champions. Kyle O'Reilly, they had this huge monster push for him now. He broke away from the Undisputed Era. He finally beat Adam Cole. He's like a standalone character now. So there could have been an argument made for him to become the champion, but I don't see why. I thought it was a good decision for them to strap Ciampa. He's always been a dominant champion. I haven't really enjoyed this babyface run of his and this tag team with Timothy Thatcher. Okay, fair enough. It gives him something to do and new opponents to face, new stories to have and stuff like that. But I thoroughly enjoyed his heel championship run, and the matches he had with Johnny Gargano, I think, are going to go down in wrestling history as some of the best matches and best storytelling ever.
I remember, what was it? It was off a table or like somewhere in the crowd. He did like some sort of move and he was just sitting and laughing. And I was like, this is like amazing storytelling. And if you go back, like I remember you got me into NXT. That's the thing. I had no clue what NXT was. And when I started watching, I was like, this is the story I want on Raw and SmackDown, but I'm not getting it. And now what NXT were really good at, they might actually have lost that fire, that that unique selling point they had because of the inclusion of Vince and everything. But let's hope. Like I'm hoping. Like I personally thought NXT 2.0 was a different take, so I actually enjoyed it, even though it wasn't the best thing I've seen on TV. But it was an interesting take. So I'm kind of reserved, but I enjoyed it personally. If we talk about something that I know you always enjoy, is AEW, and in particular, let's talk about three people. All right, Amaan. Let's talk about three people. First off, CM Punk, then Adam Cole, then Daniel Bryan. I'll give you 5 minutes. Take it away. Tell me, what is it for the wrestling world? How impactful those three coming into the same promotion in about a month's time? How has that affected AEW? How has that affected the entire landscape? Because for me, again, I never watched CM Punk when he was in WWE. I only found out about him after the fact. But dude, the pop, the crowd, the rest, like he was amazing in that match against Darby Allin as well. I think this guy hasn't wrestled in what, 7 years. So Amaan, take it away. CM Punk, not Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson. I keep getting this wrong. And then Adam Cole. I'll let you take it away.
Well, I remember texting you about this when the rumors were circulating that. First it was like, they've signed Punk. And I remember saying it to you, well, for years, there's been rumors like this. I'll believe it when I see it. And when he actually came back, and like you said, the pop was unbelievable. Like a huge, huge monster pop for a guy that's been away for 7 years. And I remember watching the post press conference with Tony Khan and CM Punk, and Tony said that we sold out this arena on a rumor. They didn't actually acknowledge that he was coming. Sure, they dropped hints like Darby Allin saying, "Oh, the best in the world," and this and that, and but the pop was huge. And I think even if they didn't bring Adam Cole or Bryan Danielson, to bring CM Punk back from retirement and from the bitterness that he felt when he left WWE, to bring him back to professional wrestling as a wrestler is unbelievable. And I'm excited to see what he does. And yet, like you said, his match with Darby Allin was brilliant. Didn't look like he missed a step. Was is in the best shape of his career, and he's probably top 40s, mid 40s. And then on top of that, to bring Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson on the same night. Again, I remember texting you about this, saying this is unbelievable. I'm not surprised that Adam Cole came. Like I've said, I'm thrilled that he is there. But Britt Baker's his girlfriend. The Young Bucks are his best friends, so he would have ended up there sooner or later. But to bring Bryan Danielson to AEW, I just think is one of it has to be the biggest thing that has happened in wrestling in, say, the last 10 years. For Tony Khan and AEW, a company that's only been around for less than 2 years.
Yeah.
To bring such big names like Punk and Danielson in particular is unbelievable. And now they're having Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson next week at this tennis stadium, apparently, which holds up to like 23,000 people. It's a wrestling fan's dream.
Yeah,
that all this sort of stuff is happening, and the crowd, the matches, the excitement. This is what WWE was in the Attitude Era.
Yeah,
this is what NXT had, might still have, but yes, I'm very, very invested in AEW, and I think that they have just gone from strength to strength. And I know we haven't mentioned him yet, but another person that I've really, really enjoyed, and the character that I think he's brought out is Malachi Black.
Oh yeah, of course.
Who used to be Aleister Black in WWE, but this whole presentation, their character, their entrance. I remember reading something where somebody said online that his stint on the main roster has just been wiped away by just his entrance and a 4-minute match, the match he had with Cody Rhodes, where he knocked him out clean with that kick.
Yeah.
He rejuvenated his career, they have. And revitalized his career. So yeah, I'm very, very much invested in AEW. They've just got such stocked talent from young people like an MJF, who constantly makes me laugh at like 23 or 24 years old. He is the most hated person in all of professional wrestling. Then they've got people like Jungle Boy, Darby Allin, Sammy Guevara, all sorts. And then they've got people like the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega. Now they've got Adam Cole. Then they've got veterans like Sting, Punk, Bryan Danielson. There's a rumor that they're going to sign Bray Wyatt. What more do you need for a wrestling fan of our age?
Yeah,
it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, It's it's a great thing, and I'm just thinking if there was no AEW, I know I'm supposed to talk about what happened this week, but this
Yeah,
like just it is game changing. It's a game changer for sure. So
yeah,
I'm really glad that AEW is in existence. Dynamite was great. That one scene where Bryan Danielson and Kenny Omega faced off, right?
yeah.
That just brought me. I was like, dude, I am super stoked about
Hmm.
what's gonna happen next week. I can't believe they're doing just a match. It's not a title, but
No, no,
it's
it's
just
just a match. Yeah,
and that's actually what you want. Same thing.
yeah,
Adam Cole had his first match as well. What
yeah,
they've done, apart from with Punk, I think Punk there was like 2-3 week delay, and maybe even Sting, but everyone
yeah,
else they come into the company and within a couple of weeks they have
yeah,
their first match rather than building someone just till the pay per view. It's
yeah.
more of showing everyone, okay, even though it's a big Dynamite, it's still
Hmm.
going to be something that people are going to tune in for. And because of the consistency that AEW Dynamite has provided, people are gravitating towards that over
Yeah,
things like WWE Raw. Now,
yeah,
another thing I want to mention, which is more AEW related, is
yeah,
Rampage.
yeah,
What's your thought on the 1 hour show? What do you think? Do you think it's a smart move from an AEW
yeah.
perspective? And the matches that were on this time around, do you think it's getting not a bit stale, but it is meant to a B show. It's meant to be AEW's B
Yeah.
show, not even like Dark. I think Dark is more like C, but like a B show where you shouldn't have Punk on it. Like in my opinion, you shouldn't have Jericho on it. You shouldn't have Danielson or Omega, but they bring those specific
Yeah.
wrestlers even on this show. So what do you think? Is Rampage a good idea, or is this something just for them to try and see if they can milk it as much as they possibly can?
No, I think it's a good idea, um, and I think that if TNT are happy with uh, the success of Dynamite and wanted an extra hour, then
Mhm.
I think it's fine. I think it shouldn't go above an hour. I
Yeah.
know that they're saying that, oh, we're going to do a 2 hour Rampage this week as a
Mhm.
special, but I think it should remain as a consistent hour. It's an easy watch. You've got 3 matches. You can give the matches time. I know
Mhm.
they have matches that go like what 15, 20 minutes,
Yeah.
um, which is ample enough time for the talent involved.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it's an easy watch to watch, and it gives maybe people who have less time or are not seen on Dynamite on a consistent basis time and exposure on primetime TV on a Friday. So I think, yeah, I think they're doing really well with Rampage. Um, a four-man commentary booth, I think, is a bit of overkill. But I know that they send that Mark Henry goes and does the backstage interviews, um, and I think the commentary booth has been good. I really enjoyed listening to Taz on commentary. Um, uh, I saw a comment when the first Rampage debuted, and it was aimed at Chris Jericho, and somebody put that I enjoyed Rampage, but I do not enjoy Chris Jericho shouting in my TV screen. And he tweeted them back and said, "Oh, um, thanks for the positive comments. I've whispered this to you." So I enjoyed that, but yeah, I have been enjoying Rampage.
Um, Britt Baker and Ruby Soho. Is that the right direction? I know she won the what was it?
Casino Battle Royale.
Thank you. Right, the Battle Royal. So, do you think it's the right call to go straight in with Ruby Soho and Britt Baker for the next pay per view, or do you think that should have been more of a WWE approach where you let it simmer, give it 4 or 5 months, or do you think it's good that they're heading straight into it?
Um, I'm not entirely sure. I think me being a bit of a traditionalist at heart, I think it's better if you build somebody up, and then, like we've discussed, that payoff is even bigger when they win the championship. I would scratch my head if they strap Ruby Soho at this event next week.
They won't. They won't.
I think Britt Baker is the best thing that's happened to that women's division.
Yeah.
She is not as experienced in the ring, but it doesn't show. Her match with Thunder Rosa, That street fight was insane. She's the most over women's wrestler, I think, in AEW right now. And I think she should have that championship until you have found somebody to beat her and be as over as her as a baby face. Maybe that is Ruby Soho, but I think she's only been in the company a few weeks. She needs time to be invested in and developed. I'm just struggling to think who else can they put against her that could be seen as a credible threat. She's already beaten Nyla Rose. She's already beat Chris Statlander. So I think that is the only thing in that company that needs more time and development is the women's division. I think every other division is firing on all cylinders, but I think Britt Baker needs credible opponents for her women's division. And with all these people coming in from Impact and from New Japan and everything, maybe that's the way that they do it.
Yeah, I think bringing that New Japan experience is probably going to help AEW a lot.
Yeah.
And opening the forbidden door, as people call it, is something that says I didn't see happening a few years ago, but AEW's really opened that door. Now, if we talk about SmackDown, right? Roman Reigns, Tribal Chief, right? Big deal, great guy, great character so far. I've been really happy with the way he's been handled since coming back last year at SummerSlam. So Big E showed up. Now, I don't fully think it's a good idea where they've kind of previewed that, oh, there's going to be New Day versus Usos and Roman Reigns next week. I don't think that's something that should have happened so quickly. But again, ratings and all that stuff is happening at the moment. Do you think Roman Reigns will lose the title, first off, against Brock Lesnar at Crown Jewel? That's one question. And number two is, do you think the story they've got going with Roman Reigns can save SmackDown every week from being just an okay to a good show, and it makes it great compared to Raw and stuff? Do you think something like that will happen?
In answer to your first question, I wouldn't be surprised. I think, and the creative at WWE doesn't cease to surprise me, or with all the stuff that they've done in the past. Whether I think it would be a wrong decision to strap Brock Lesnar so early. I have really enjoyed this Roman Reigns heel run, as the Tribal Chief. I think it has been probably the best story that the WWE has been telling for over a year now, and it has made SmackDown must watch every week. And the superstars that Roman has been facing, such as Edge, Daniel Bryan, Kevin Owens, John Cena. Now he's facing Finn Balor and Brock Lesnar. I have really, really enjoyed that whole trajectory of that story, and I think everybody involved in that story, whether that be Roman Reigns, the Usos, Paul Heyman, the creative backstage, I think has done a great job and has made it really, really interesting and has kept it interesting. Well, like you said, it's been running for over a year now. I think your payoff has to happen at WrestleMania. Who against? I don't know at this point, because he's
Undertaker.
He's beat everybody. But maybe if they bring people in from the draft, you've got new, fresh opponents to face. But yeah, I have really, really enjoyed this Roman Reigns story. I wouldn't have brought Brock Lesnar in this early. I would have left that story till WrestleMania, because it is such an intriguing story because you're going to be constantly second guessing. Well, where is Paul Heyman going? Is he
Yeah.
a Roman Reigns guy or is he a Brock Lesnar guy? Is he going to betray one of them? Is he playing both of them off just to get advantage? I don't know what you would do. I know there is always chatter that they want to bring The Rock back and have The Rock face Roman Reigns because they're both cousins and it's an inbuilt story.
Yeah.
There is a story ready made there. But yeah, I've really enjoyed this whole Roman Reigns heel turn, and it just shows that them trying to force feed us him as the ultimate babyface was never going to happen. But just whilst we're on SmackDown, if I may, I have really enjoyed Seth Rollins on SmackDown with these outlandish fashion suits he's been wearing and the outlandish comments he's been making as a delusional visionary that he calls himself. His programs with Cesaro and now Edge have been brilliant. And I think Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks, that whole SmackDown from head to toe has, for the last year, I think, been the best. If we're just comparing Raw and SmackDown, has been the best out of those two shows.
Yeah, I understand exactly where you're coming from. Plus, on top of that, there's SmackDown just automatically looks like a better show, which is shocking, isn't it? Because it was meant to be the baby brother, but it's become the older brother over the course of the last couple of years. Just last question about SmackDown.
Yeah.
Becky Lynch, the heel turn, if you want to call it that, okay? Do you think it was it's the right decision right now where Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, that kind of rivalry happening? Do you think this is the right time for Becky to turn heel? Or I think technically she is now heel. But I just don't understand because it's like it's very similar to Hulk Hogan in WCW, right? Becoming the NWO and stuff. It just reminds me of that. When you're at the peak, why would you change to a heel? What do you think?
I can see why you have done it. I think if they want to build Bianca Belair as the next babyface, and the next uber babyface, you need an uber heel to do that, or somebody who can become an uber heel to do that. And I think from a story point perspective, from a logical perspective, it makes sense. Ever since Becky went off on maternity leave, that's all you have heard the people chant, particularly when Charlotte Flair was in the ring. You have heard them chant Becky Lynch or we want Becky or the man or anything. And I know that Becky has been playing that up on Twitter. I remember seeing a tweet. I can't remember whether this was a pay-per-view or just a Raw or a SmackDown, but she said that she was breastfeeding at home and she was still the most over women's superstar in WWE, which is true. She was. So for her to come back and for her to let all the success and the notoriety go to her head and become a heel makes sense. And I can kind of make my peace with her defeating Bianca Belair in under a minute at SummerSlam. But the payoff has to be Bianca Belair beats Becky Lynch to become the women's champion, and then goes on to become a huge babyface. And you can tell that people are invested in her. In Bianca Belair, she is getting those babyface reactions. She is incredibly talented and has all the qualities to become a big star in WWE. So I think it was the right move to turn her heel. I think she can pull it off and become an uber heel. And And personally, this has nothing to do with anything we were discussing, but I would like to see a Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch match versus Bianca Belair and Montez Ford. I think that would be a good match to see.
If you had to pick a wrestler of the week, who would it be?
Now, you told me this at the beginning of the show, and I have been thinking about it as we've been discussing it, and I have two. I would either say it is either Big E or Adam Cole, because I think that pop that Adam Cole received was huge. But I think I'm going to give it to Big E just because of winning the WWE Championship, it being such a huge moment for him, for the fans, for everybody. Everybody who's supported him and invested in him and has wanted to see this happen for such a long time.
Thank you, Amaan, and thank you everyone for watching. And yeah, until next time, everyone, take care, stay safe.